Welcome to Chapter 7 Institutions. In this chapter, we'll look at how social institutions shape our daily lives and how they both reflect and reinforce gender norms and inequalities. Let's start with the basics. An institution is a persistent pattern of social interaction that meets a need society can't easily meet through individuals alone. Think of things like education, family, religion, or the economy. Institutions organize our behavior and expectations. They're the invisible systems that structure our everyday lives. Within those systems, we have norms and policies. Norms are the informal rules, beliefs, and practices that everyone knows, follows, and approves of. For example, the idea of back to school shopping isn't a law, but it's a well known tradition that helps families prepare for a new school year. Policies, on the other hand, are formal rules with stated consequences. For example, attendance requirements at school or workplace dress codes. Together, norms and policies keep institutions functioning. When we talk about social structure, we're referring to the entire web of interlocking institutions, all the systems that make up the world we live in. Now, let's focus on how gender operates within these systems. A gendered institution is one where gender is used as an organizing principle. It shapes how people are categorized, valued, and treated. For example, think about schools, sports, or workplaces. Gender often determines what roles are available, who gets authority, and how people are expected to behave. We call this gender salience, the degree to which gender matters in a given situation. In some spaces, gender might fade into the background. In others, it's front and center, influencing everything from who speaks first to who gets promoted. Once gender becomes part of an institution's foundation, it can feel natural or inevitable. But it's really the product of social design. Virginia Woolf once wrote about the importance of a room of one's own, reminding us that even physical spaces reflect gendered access to power and opportunity. A similar example today is the debate over gender and bathrooms. Who is allowed in which space and how those spaces are regulated reveals just how institutionalized gender really is. Institutions don't just separate people by gender, they often rank them. In sports, for example, we have separate but equal systems, one for men and one for women. But that separation can reinforce the idea that men's sports are the standard, while women's sports are secondary. The same logic appears in schools, workplaces, and even politics, settings where men are often assumed to be leaders or competitors, while women are expected to be supporters or caregivers. So, what happens when women compete with men on equal terms? That question often makes institutions uncomfortable because it challenges the very structures they're built on. As a result, women's successes can sometimes be met with resistance rather than celebration. Institutions are powerful precisely because they're stable, and that stability can make them hard to change. We call this institutional inertia, the tendency for systems to keep operating the way they always have, even when society's values evolve. But institutions do change, especially when people push for reform. Gender equality laws, inclusive policies, and social movements all help reshape the rules that govern our lives. And that's the heart of this chapter, recognizing how deeply gender is embedded in our institutions and understanding that if institutions are built by people, they can be rebuilt by people too. So, in this chapter, we've looked at what institutions are, how they organize daily life, how they institutionalize gender difference and inequality, and how they can, with effort, change. As you move forward, keep asking, how do the systems around us reinforce the gender order, and how can we imagine and create institutions that are more equitable for everyone?